All right. Hi, Tim.
How you doing,
So
Houston?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
You bet. So why don't we get started? Before we get too deep into things, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us, what your background is and how you got started with trading. I know your background. We've talked about this just before we jumped on the call, but I'd love to hear it again.
Yeah, so I got started probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and when I was younger, in college, I had some friends with dads that worked down on the Chicago Board of Trade. So I had a little bit of exposure or the opportunity to go down to the trading pits and, see what was going on and kind of be exposed to the trading world as it was. And every time we go down there, a lot of the guys in the pits would always say, the pits are shrinking. You want to go to the terminals and get on the computer and learn to trade with the computer versus being down in the pits. And so that's basically what kind of guided us towards online screen trading. And we also had a couple of other traders, if you will, mentors that had been trading really since the 80s on the computer screen, and they kind of gave us some assurance or some confidence that, this computer screen trading thing, it's sustainable and it's here to stay. Obviously, these guys have made a strong living out of it, so that kind of got us motivated to start. And I say yes because I had a good buddy who we kind of came up in the trading process together, and so I got my start just kind of dabbling away myself in the trading pits, and then moving to the trading screen just really helped give me a foundation, if you will, for all the years of learning and experimentation and everything that would come after that.
Yeah. And so, in your journey you've been through so far, how was it different than what you expected it was going to be like? So when you first saw, the guys trading the pits and you saw that there was an opportunity or the possibility that you could do it, trading electronically, has it kind of unfolded the way you thought it was going to unfold, or what have you seen along the way?
Man, it's really interesting when you're looking back. Everything seems so different. The perspective is so much different when you're just starting out in a new project or sport or a business venture. That naiveness is almost a virtue because you don't know what you don't know, so you're only working with the information you have and what you what's around you at the time. So going through the process, I was able to learn some really key elements of my trading right from the start. Things like, limiting my losses and kind of the whole risk side of things was kind of ingrained in my brain right from the start. And so with that as my foundation, it really allowed me to experiment and work my way through, the ups and downs and the just emotional tolls that occur in a way that wasn't completely, catastrophic at any point. I never had a giant account blow up and things like that. So starting with a strong foundation with a little bit of guidance in the right areas, I think was probably the biggest benefit to me.
And so what do you think that guidance did for you? So was it material around how you saw the markets or the setups that you ended up learning? What did you find most valuable around that guidance?
So it really started with the mindset and the framework of this is how you need to approach thinking about trading, and so coming at it from a young kind of fresh slate approach and being having a couple key things ingrained in my head right away, I think was a big benefit versus coming from, let's say I was, in the business world as an executive in some company, or I was a real estate agent or something where I had a lot of other conditioning in my brain or a certain way of thinking.
Yeah.
That coming in with a fresh slate, I was able to take a look at the markets without having any biases or other things already conditioned.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But you've always been a competitive athlete, right? I think I know now you.
Yeah, that's right. I've always been pretty active and competitive all my life, and I race mountain bikes. I like to explore and get outside and go for hikes and all that kind of stuff, pretty much anything outdoors. But, I think, a competitive nature is good.
Yeah.
Maybe too much competitiveness and having to win might be a little bit too much competitive nature. But for the most part, that grit or that drive or whatever you want to call it, I think is really important to a trader.
Yeah. Well, especially like you said, like if you're a new trader, how do you create that belief in yourself early on that, if you had a few bumps on the road, that you're going to be able to get through it? Do you think it's the guidance that you got, or maybe your competitive background that allowed you to maintain and push, or what do you think can you attribute to just your own personal?
Yes and no. It seems like there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
The good information is mixed in with the bad, and you could read, 10 different traders could read the same book or the same paragraph and take out different bits of information from it.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to just realize that, it's the process that we're going through, and the markets are always going to be there. So there's no rush to get to a certain point at a certain date and time. I do like goal setting, but I found that when I set goals for, in 6 months or by, December 31st, 2005, I want my trading account to be at this size.
Yeah.
And I want to be trading this many contracts. Those kind of goals, I get to that point, or I get to that date and time rather, and, if I wasn't at the level I wanted to, I would feel like I let myself down, and then that can kind of spiral into some bad habits. So being patient with the process, I think, is beneficial, along with the, actually placing of trades, but the process of learning, experimenting, going back to a paper trading account if you're trying something new, that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's such powerful advice because, I've seen that myself just in my trading where, I think, we all been taught to have, create these goals, those SMART goals, but they don't necessarily always apply to trading. I know for myself, for many years, I tried, creating like daily goals where I had to hit a certain amount of, profits or hit a certain amount of ticks in terms of profit, and then I would shut it down. But it just like, I think the end result was exactly what you stated there. When the days I did not hit the results I wanted, and it just left me with kind of that unmet feeling, that I wasn't firing on all cylinders. So
rather than try to hit a certain number every day, I kind of flipped it around and said, well, the days that are going really well, and I have a lot of great setups, and I'm taking trades to targets, or I'm trailing my stop, and I'm having these great winning trades. On those days or weeks even, I'll just continue to trade. And then on days or periods of time where I'm not seeing setups, or, I take a trade and it's acting funny, or it's just, I'm getting a handful of stop outs or more losing trades than usual, then I'll just shut it down and stop trading. And that kind of helps to smooth things out, I suppose.
Yeah. So you have kind of more performance objectives versus outcome objectives.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So take us a step back a bit. So what does your trading look like nowadays? You mentioned before you kind of got in trading stocks. What's the basket of instruments or stocks you trade nowadays?
So yeah, like you said, I got started swing trading stocks, and then after about 2 years of doing that, I started incorporating futures because I like the idea of having very tight spreads, being able to get in and out, and then close out the position and not have anything on my mind overnight. And so now it's swing trading stocks, and those can be a variety, everything from Apple, Google, big names, stocks that have larger volumes that are more active. And so there's that component. And then day trading is comprised of the ESYM and the euro for the most part. I traded other things like soybeans in the past, and some of those other markets, gold, they kind of go in cycles. So I'll trade them for a while, and then they'll start to fall apart. Or like the euro as of late has gotten really good, and the setups, you just look at the chart, and it's just setup after setup. And so that kind of goes back to, trade the markets, trade what you see. Don't try to force things. If there was a period of time where I just wasn't trading the euro and was trading the ES a lot because the euro was kind of crummy. So, just being patient with the markets you have. I think if you're a day trader and you're trading the futures markets, 2 markets is totally fine. You don't have to trade 50 markets. One market is totally fine. Picking one market, one time frame, and one method is a great way to kind of get started, or at least master that one before moving on to others.
How do you know when to jump in between contracts? So when do you say, there's so few opportunities here in the euro, it's time for me to jump back over to trading, the ES or soybeans? What do you? It's kind of a gut feel you get, or do you log it and track and say, it looks like I'm having fewer setups here? How do you get that feel for when you need to move over or try another instrument?
It's really just a matter of going through every evening and spending 10 minutes to run through the day and look at the markets. And if you can draw your setups and you see or things are jumping out at you, and it's just very obvious that, hey, here we have a breakout, or here we have a pullback, and look at this, we just went a nice series of pullbacks over and over again, and there's a lot of opportunities that are making themselves visible, then that's when I would, look to get more active in those markets.
Gotcha. Okay. And
big things too that are happening. We might be coming. We might have made a huge pullback, and all of a sudden, now the ES is, we were 6 months of going down, and now we're starting to go up. A big change in either direction or volatility or some kind of larger market condition that changes. Those are usually good times to be active in the markets, because that's when a lot of stuff's happening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense here. There's some sort of catalyst, some sort of abnormal thing that's happening that would actually prompt some better trading action, right?
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. And so, you always hear people talk about that trading edge. So, you need to have an edge in the markets. How do you define, that kind of generic term of a trading edge? What's in your head? What do you think of when people say trading edge? And what's yours?
So one of the things I've always done, and this applies to other things besides trading, but when someone says something to you, and maybe a friend says something mean or says a joke or whatever, and you have an initial response, initial thought come in your head, and I always try to pause for a second and think about the opposite. And I guess there's a lot of analogies I could use that might be a little better, but kind of like the guy who's speeding down the highway or cuts you off, and you think, oh, that jerk, but maybe he's got his pregnant wife in the car, and so rather than initially blasting your horn, taking a second to think about the opposite is so that's kind of the exercise that I do or that I use. Yeah. And so as it applies to trading, if I see something that looks super obvious, I'll take a second and think about the opposite or what another trader might be looking at. If I pull up my chart in the morning and it's, boom, wow, look at this great long setup. The market looks like it's going to take off higher. Just taking a second to think about, okay, what about people that what about this market would make people want to get short? And that way, you kind of, at the very least, have a couple of scenarios in your head mapped out. But even in this world of computerized trading, the programs are still created by humans. And so if I'm a human being and my human nature is wired in my brain to respond in a certain way, whether it's fear or hunger or some sort of initial response, if I can just take a second to think about the opposite, then that helps to kind of put yourself in the minority, if you will, instead of being just the masses, the market's going down, I got to sell, rather than taking a second, pausing, thinking about the opposite, and maybe it's an opportunity to buy or to get long.
Yeah. So that's a great framework, actually. Like you said, it extends to a lot more than just trading, right? So that's a great framework. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that I've learned from trading or I've read in books that don't have anything to do with trading, but I've applied it to my trading. And, as stuff in your trading just applies so much to other areas of your life. Yeah.
That's so cool because I see it all the time where, trading bleeds into my real life, and it works the other way as well. My real life bleeds into my trading. So
yep, absolutely.
It's very interesting. And I always, I love to tell people that, for my journey anyways, I've really found that trading is really just such an amazing self-development tool. Once I was willing to actually listen to what my trading results was telling me, then once I was able to, become really honest and see for myself that what I was doing or what I was bringing to trading wasn't working, then I was able to do the hard work to begin to actually be honest and fix those things. So
yeah, and trading is really tough in that way because it's not like you're climbing a staircase one step at a time. And I suppose, there's not a whole lot of sports or endeavors that are just constant 1 foot forward or, 1 foot in front of the other. There's always going to be setbacks, but more so in trading because of the just nature that you're not going to win 100% of the time. And going in with the mindset that I have to be right can end up really doing a lot more damage than good.
Yeah. Yeah, the mindsets we bring to trading is so important, and the need to be right or the need to prove that you're worthwhile, or maybe that if you operate from a place of scarcity. The question that I have is, and I'm sure you've run into it as well because I know you talk to a lot of traders and new traders, but I hear a lot of new traders come to me and ask, I'm really passionate about trading, and I really want to do this full time, and I want to quit my job and I want to do it right away. What's your advice when you hear, or guidance when you hear someone ask you that question?
Well, it always starts with what is the purpose for your trading, and I've always looked at my trading as just a means to generate an income to then invest that money into longer-term vehicles. So if you're going to become a trader because you have to make money tomorrow, then it's probably not a good venture for you. You probably won't have the kind of success that you want. And, I've seen both sides of the coin. Having to succeed is such a strong mental state where, honey, I lost my job, we got the kids, if we don't make something happen, we're going to lose the mortgage, or we're going to lose the house because we can't pay the mortgage. And so, in a lot of ways, that can be a good mental state. And a lot can come from it. It can be a super hard time, but you look back and it ends up being one of the life-changing experiences. But in trading, there's so much more involved that as you're learning, you have the mastering of your method, and whether it's something incredibly simple, once you get the actual live money involved, whether it's one share of a stock or one contract, now you have the emotional side. And putting those two together while you're under additional stress of having to pay bills right from your trading account, at least at first, that can really make the learning process a big struggle. And, there's the thing about trading is you can have a lot of wins. I remember putting on option trades in Chicago and then getting on a plane, flying out to Arizona, landing, pulling up my computer, and, having huge gains from the morning because the market just ripped, and, exiting out the trade with a huge win. And, that whether or not the win was because of something that I saw or analyzed, or whether it was just a portion of it was luck, early on, those were some of the experiences that I had that might fool someone into thinking, oh, this is great. I just put on a trade. I go play golf. I get on a plane and fly to the Bahamas, and I come back and I've got, I'm up $5,000 or whatever.
It's money waiting for me,
So there can be bad habits that form by having a little bit of luck push you one way or another. And, that being said, trading, there is an element of being in the right place at the right time. And there is an element of, hey, if you had a really good streak and you put all your eggs in one basket and made $1 million and then pulled it out of the markets and traded with $100,000 of it, that's just one strategy. And if it works for a few people that get it right at the right time, but if you're looking at trading as just a means to develop some more income and kind of integrate into your life, maybe you do have a part-time job. And when I started trading, I was working full-time and then slowly transitioned into, making trading my primary focus. And so the stress I think, is a big deterrent I think is a big deterrent for new traders.
Yeah, you can't discount that. So maybe you can share your experience. How long did it take before you felt, you're comfortable taking trading on as a full-time venture? How long was that process?
So my process started with swing trading, and then it wasn't too long before I developed a rhythm of trading. I was just focusing on one style of trading, basically, buying strong stocks on pullbacks and shorting weak stocks on rallies. And so it was a simple concept. So there weren't a whole lot of moving parts. So I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time with, I gotta wait till this lines up and that lines up, and I gotta understand this chart and that chart. My time was spent on, okay, I just put on my first stock trade, and I've got 10 shares of Apple, and it went up 5 cents. now I feel like I got to sell. I feel like I got to lock in my profits. And a lot of that was the learning that I experienced. And so probably the first year and a half, 2 years, it was a lot of doing the same mechanical elements, like placing a lot of trades and just looking for the same setups, but learning about how I react to, well, I've got 10 shares, well, now I got 100 shares. Now, the market's down a bunch, and all 5 of my positions are down. And how does that make me feel? And then, about a year and a half, 2 years, I felt pretty comfortable trading the swing trading. Yeah. And so that's about when I started to, I felt like there were times, and we talked about this earlier, there's times when you're swing trading that you've got tons of setups for a couple of days, and we're with the market pull back, and so you see a bunch of long setups. And then the next week or two, you might just be maintaining positions, and you're just sitting on the trades and managing your stops, and there's not a whole lot to do. And so I kind of wanted to fill that void with day trading, and I didn't know a whole lot about it. I knew the futures were kind of where it was at. You can get in and get out really easily, not a lot of slippage, and fairly easy to maneuver, close your positions out, and not have anything on your mind overnight. So that was appealing. Yeah. So I started day trading, and immediately I made a crap ton of trades, and plus 1 tick, plus 2 ticks, minus 1 tick, and I was just making all these trades and just racking up tons of commission. So after maybe 2 or 3 months of doing that, it was like, okay, even though I might feel like I've started to master my swing trading portion, I got to take a step back, jump on the practice account, really master a methodology for day trading. Yeah. And for me, it was just a matter of kind of adapting my swing trading that I was using daily charts to a smaller time frame. And so that's what I spent probably the next, year or so, 6 months to a year, kind of getting to know the ES, the YM, and adapt my swing trading method. And when you're using a simple theory or a simple concept, it's a little bit easier to adapt to other markets. If you got a million moving parts that have to do with this market specifically, it makes it hard to adapt. So I think that was a benefit. And then so now we're on maybe 3 years, going on 3.5 years, and it was probably from when I started day trading, it was probably a good 1.5 years, 2 years before I felt like I had a pretty good handle on day trading. And part of that is because you see so many different market conditions over the course of a year, and even 5 years. You might start trading, things are going great, you're trading your practice account, and it's just winner after winner, and then you immediately go live a month later, and now the market changes because we've been in a sideways market, and that's what was working for your strategy. Now you're trading real money, and the market's going up, and now your strategy's not working. So going through, I always like to wait till I get some sort of a rocky period while I'm swing trading before I go live, because, or at least when I was learning a new method, because if everything's going great and then you go live, you really haven't gone through any tough times or any changes that might you might need to account for.
That makes a lot of sense.
For me, it's probably a 5-year process or so to really feel relaxed and confident in my trading. And a big part of that was just, growing my savings in my longer term, growing my net worth, my financial security at the same time as I was trading. I started with a full-time job and transitioned slowly. So it wasn't like, okay, I've got $5 to my name and I'm gonna start trading, or I've got $1,000.
You're gonna double that, and you're gonna triple that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put $1,000 in my trading account and make 100,000. So
right.
having and I live pretty simply. I wouldn't say, I'm not living college dorm life, but I'm not big on stuff. I'm fairly minimalist, aside from my computers and my way too many bikes and that sort of stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff, so I don't have a lot of expenses that would just build and build and build, and then you end up with $10,000 a month in expenses. So kind of combining the real life stuff with, okay, I've got enough in the bank to make it for the next 6 months or a year or whatever. That kind of freed my mind to be able to just trade and focus on the trading and the methodology, and not necessarily, okay, I have to make a trade today because I've got a mortgage due at the end of the week. Yeah.
Yeah. I get a sense that you spend a lot of time, like, it sounds like your level of emotions and what thoughts are coming into your mind. I think in the past I've heard you talk about just how important it is to have that kind of neutral observer mindset. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I definitely feel like with any endeavor, the mindset is where the winning is. And a book every trader should read is called The Power of Habit. I forget who
I've read
who wrote that one, but it's fantastic because it talks about our habits, how we can become aware of habits, and then how we can change those habits. Mm. And so when you understand the process of how to create a habit, then you start to become more aware of what you're doing on a daily basis, and you might catch yourself as you're about to bite your nails, or you're about to make an impulse trade, or things like that. And there's a lot of good examples of Olympic athletes and business people that use these habits, and even drug addicts and things that have changed their habits. And it really all starts with becoming aware of what you're doing, where you're at, what your mental state is. And kind of like you said, pulling yourself aside, almost, picture yourself sitting in front of the trading screen, and you're in a heated trade, or you're in a heated state of mind, and you're flustered or you're excited, and picture, yourself, another version of yourself, standing looking over your shoulder, saying, just stay calm, be patient. Remember, we talked about this. You journaled about this last night. Kind of, it sounds a little bit silly, but it's just being able to be aware of your thoughts and your emotions. Yeah,
so having a detached state sounds like
exactly. You can't really flip a switch and all of a sudden not be emotional or not have thoughts, but kind of almost the meditation or yoga philosophy where, okay, I have a thought, I made a note of it, and I'll come back to it later. Yeah.
So do you do any meditation or yoga?
Yeah, I do yoga. I think it's really good for what? I think so. Probably the biggest benefit to my trading is my riding, because it gets me away from the screen. I can't tell you the number of times I've been out on a ride, or I've been out on a hike, and I've put the pieces of the puzzle together. I've had the breakthrough idea, or had the thought of, I should try that when I get back, or I've been thinking about something, staring at the screen. You leave, and that's when things kind of click. So
isn't that amazing?
That's probably the biggest component.
It's amazing why it's always that way. It's like people say it's always maybe you have your best ideas in the shower, or like you said, when you're going for a walk or a hike. But it's so true.
Yeah,
so what
like
do you do to get?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. But just like an athlete, if it comes down to the game-winning free throw or basket, and you're Michael Jordan, you're going to want to instill the habits early on and visualize by making, 100 free throws a day or 1,000 free throws a day, and then add in all the distractions while you're practicing and visualize so that when it comes time to perform, you stay calm.
Yeah. And it sounds like, I know you've probably spent a great deal of time thinking about this. So what do you do personally to get the best out of your trading performance? Is there some sort of ritual or practice or habits you've developed to get yourself primed and ready when you have to, to start trading or take action?
Yeah, I think routine is really important, not so much because you've forgotten your trading setups or your rules
right.
every night, but going through the process, all of those small wins or those little steps that, okay, I wake up, I brush my teeth, or I grab a cup of coffee, I read the paper, I take the dog for a walk, all those little things kind of, they're cues or they're triggers to get you in the right mindset. Just like sometimes a certain type of music or a certain song might trigger a thought or an experience that you've had. I usually listen to classical music while I'm trading or while I'm working during the day, and that kind of gets my mind in a calm state. So having some sort of routine, having your goals written out, or just having a little bit of, some affirmations or something written down that kind of gets you in a rhythm throughout the day or to start your day can really kind of start to turn the throttle so that by the time you start to trade, you're calm, you've done this 50 times. Because if you can create as much framework as you can, the market is going to be the curveball. So if you have everything kind of mapped out in terms of how your morning is going to go, then it can help with patience and discipline, because the only moving part is the market. You're looking for a certain setup, or you're looking for something to happen, and if you know exactly what you're looking for or the time window that you're looking for it, now it's just a matter of waiting for it.
That makes a lot of sense, because you're basically taking yourself out of the equation, right? The only unknown is the market. I like that. Yeah, that's very, very well put. Yeah, I like that a lot. And so how do you distress? So what do you do, when you've had a good day or even a bad day, and you're like, I got to get out of here? What do you do to let off some steam and release some of that stress?
So to me, when I remember first kind of having some success or having when I was going up in contract size, you'd have bigger winners, but you also have bigger losers. And it's trying to get yourself to the point where, okay, I had a winning trade, great, I'll move on to the next thing. Oh, I've had a losing trade, great, I'll move on to the next one. And so instead of having a winning day and going out and celebrating, that kind of sets you up for, oh, well, now I had a losing day, I'm going to go lock myself in my room and cry, versus having that routine where, okay, here's my, this is my trading block, and after that, regardless of, whether I made money or lost money today, now markets are closed, and I'm going to go for my bike ride, or, go read a book, or go for a walk, or play softball, or whatever it is that you enjoy outside of trading. Keeping that routine alive, or keeping, your life alive around trading is, that's the most important part.
And I think that ties us right into, I know that you're a big advocate around designing your lifestyle and just kind of, building your trading to fit your life. So in that way, so what kind of hours do you usually keep as it pertains to trading? Do you have a set schedule that you try to keep on a weekly basis where you're going to always be in front of the screens and active?
Yeah, so now I'm really just focused on the first 2 or so hours of the trading day, and that allows me to both day trade and manage any swing trading positions that I'm either putting on or taking a look at. When I first started, it was 12, 14, 16-hour days. I was in front of the screen all day long, and then I would wake up and or I'd go to sleep and wake up for the European session, and it just got to be too much. There's certainly, if you're a newer trader, I would, my biggest advice, I suppose, to the question of how much time do I need to spend, when you're in front of the screen, you got to be focused and then get away from the screen. So rather than sit there all afternoon, and I'd have Excel charts that blocked out every 30 minutes, and I would record all of my trades. And after 6 months, I'd start to see, wow, all the trades I'm making in the afternoon, like most of them, and certainly on net, were just losing trades. I wasn't profitable in the afternoon. Sure, I'd have some winning trades, but on average, they'd be clouded by, I'm bored, I'm going to place this trade. Oh, I've been sitting here all day and I haven't made a trade, so I'm going to close out, or I'm going to make a trade.
Yeah.
So focusing, and if you got, a family or a job, it's even more important. So I would say focus on a small time window during the day, and it can be as little as 2 hours, and then give yourself 30 minutes to an hour in the evening while the markets are closed, because that's when they're going to be the most objective to either look through your watch lists or, print out the ES or the YM charts for the day and go through and mark your setups or draw in the trends. And having that sort of exercise in the evening is probably more important than the actual sitting in front of the trading screen. So you can certainly trade in a small amount of time, but it's the learning process that takes the most amount of time, and a lot of that comes outside of the actual market being open.
Market hours, yeah. So just to re-summarize that, so right now, do you only trade those 2 hours a day, or do you also do the afternoon, or did you stop doing the afternoon session?
Yep, stop doing the afternoon. I don't trade the European Open anymore. That's a good time to trade, but it just became too hard with, training and bike racing and traveling and stuff like that. So now it's just basically the first 2 hours of the day, and if there's nothing going on, or if the markets get really bizarre and there's no swing trading setups, or there's nothing that I'm seeing on the ES, I'll go days or periods of time where I don't make a trade, and that's okay to have days of no trades, because you want to be there for the good times. And if you get sucked into a week of just making crap trades, now you're down on the month, or now you're going to make that back up, so to speak, and that's not a good mental state to be in. So it's totally okay to not make a trade today, and you don't have to make 50 trades. You just have to be patient and make trades that follow your beliefs and your system or your methodology and that sort of thing. And even the methodology doesn't have to be super crazy. Like I said, with swing trading, for me, it's just a matter of buying strong stocks on pullbacks. That makes total sense to me. And when I look at the chart, I can identify a strong stock pretty easily by the trend, or a stock that's making 52-week highs. And so those kind of obvious things, or things that resonate with you personally, are the best vehicles to follow or to pursue, because there's so much stuff out there in terms of indicators and studies and this person's strategy and that person's strategy. It's great to get ideas and things like that, but at the end of the day, you have to believe in what you're trading and how you're trading. And the best way to do that is to modify or create your own strategy, if you will.
Yeah. So many good nuggets there, man. Just so many good nuggets you shared there. We're getting near the end of our time, so maybe I'll just ask you just a few more quick questions before we wrap things up.
All right.
Number one, if you were to start it all over again today, would you do it the same way that you did it, or would you change anything?
That's a tough question. I gotta say that, today I'm happier than I was a year ago. And, I think I can go back and, for the most part, say, am I better off now than I was 12 months ago? And if you can keep doing that, then you really can't regret things that you've done. I mean, there's been challenges, but, for the most part, I've been able to live a pretty stress-free life, and, in that I'm not being chased by wild lions, or I've got a roof over my head, and that kind of stuff. So, you can get caught up a little bit, or at least I can, because I'm more of a thinker than a extroverted talk about my problems with a bunch of people. And so you can get down on yourself sometimes for all kinds of reasons. But at the end of the day, those experiences make you who you are today. So, I don't think I would – there's nothing that stands out in particular that I would go back and say, if I just didn't make that trade, or if I just did make that trade, because, at the end of the day, one trade isn't going to make you. It could certainly break you, but, it's a long process, and I guess life in general is a process. So I'm pretty happy with how things have progressed, and certainly at the time, looking forward, you're saying, wow, why did this happen to me? Or how am I supposed to get out of this mess? But then you look back on it and you say, oh, wow, you know what? That ended up working out really great. I ended up meeting this person who introduced me to that person. And, man, when you start thinking about some of that stuff, it's like, that gets pretty mind-blowing sometimes.
It's so true, right? When you actually spend the time to actually reflect a bit on your hard times, then, you'll often find out, wow, there's a lot more in there than just those hard times.
Absolutely.
So another question. So what would you say to a trader right now who's struggling? So what advice would you give them, if they're just having a really hard time with trading and they're thinking about giving it up?
I would say stop, take a break, and go read something. Probably not the newspaper, but some book. It doesn't have to be trading related at all. But even if it's just 10 minutes of reading or 10 minutes a day of reading, that does so much for your brain to realign things or spark ideas. And it's okay to take a break. And oftentimes I've gone on a trip, or for whatever reason I've had to take a break from trading. Life happens, family stuff comes up. And when you come back from those breaks, at least I feel just recharged and invigorated and just ready to go. And maybe I see things a little bit differently. Typically, as I get older, my patience seems to get a little better, at least. So, taking a trip, or at least taking a break every quarter or 6 months, I think is really good. So, especially if you're in a struggling time, it's kind of like a training analogy. You could train until you're just burnt out, or you could schedule breaks that keep you hungry for the next big event. So that's kind of like kind of what I do with my trading, and taking breaks here and there. In the summer, I'm traveling a lot, so keeps you fresh and keeps your mind.
And that's how you're going to get peak performance out of yourself, right? But not demanding that you show up every single day at your peak state.
Focusing. When you're in front of the screen, you're going to focus, and when you're not consumed by trading. If you're with your family and your kids, you're with your family and kids, not your mind isn't off in the world.
You don't have some small part of your brain multitasking on trying to figure out this next trade.
That was tough for me. I was a big multitasker, constantly thinking either about the past or the future, and I would forget about the present right here.
Right. And so, just two last questions. So, number one, we just talked about books. What are your top recommended books, trading or otherwise, for traders?
I like the Market Wizards series. There's a lot of good nuggets in there, different kinds of traders. So I think those are pretty applicable to a lot of different people, even non-traders. And then the two other books I really like are Pitbull by Marty Schwartz. And then one that it's not super common and it has a silly title, but It's called How I Made $2 Million in the Stock Market by
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Darvis.
Nick Darvis, yeah.
It's a little bit more of a story, but it goes through, and so is Pitbull, kind of the story that talks about how these traders went through their process, and at least those kind of books resonated with me a lot more than some of the more analytical.
Just technical, yeah.
Technical books, yeah. So I think those are good, and even if you're not a day trader, if you don't trade futures, reading a book like Pitbull, I think you can gain a lot from it too.
And also shout out that book you mentioned earlier, The Power of Habits. By, I think it's Charles.
Oh yeah,
Dugan.
I forget who the author was, but there's so many good books that aren't necessarily in the trading category that might be about success or routines or whatever else that have certainly helped too.
Absolutely. And so just one last question as we shut things down. So where can people find out more about you, Tim? And is there anything else you want to share with the audience today?
Actually, yeah. So on the topic of like reading things or listening to podcasts, one good tip I got was, sit down and start listening. And if in the first 10 minutes you're not really getting anything out of it, it's okay to close the book or, turn off the podcast and go to something that is more interesting to you or out of, like, rather than just downloading a podcast and going episode by episode, picking out, okay, what do I need to learn right now, or what will benefit me the most right now, and going to that thing, I think helps to continue the learning process and keeps the excitement and motivation alive versus being super methodical and, okay, I'm just going to sit here and read this entire book, and even if I don't get anything out of it, I mean, there's something for determination, but that kind of way of going through, consuming information, I think has been helpful because there's so much stuff out there now. You can't get through it all. So, but if people want to learn more about me, you can go to my blog. It's eminimind.com. E-mini like the E-mini futures, and then mind like your brain. E-mini mind.
Yeah, definitely recommend Tim's site. Tons of good blog articles there as well as resources, so be sure to check him out. All right, Tim, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. We've got to catch up again soon.
Hey, you bet. Thanks for having me, Houston. I really appreciate it.
You bet, man. Take care.
Same to you.
Bye now.